is going on, everybody? So I am back at it again, working on the Camaro. Let me right here. So I already started taking out the cam, started working before I started filming a little bit. Let me show you what I've been working on here. So as you guys know, we already have the motor pretty much torn down this far. I just took the front plate off, pulled the cam out. Just took the little plate off there. This is my stock cam. One really concerning thing is this lobe. There's a big chunk taken out of it or something. There's a bunch of pitting right there. So that's a little strange. But yeah, I just pulled it out. We used a water pump bolt as like a handle and just slid the whole thing out. It's my old timing cover, so I got to get the seal out of here so I can reseal this thing because it's disgusting. As you guys saw last time, the trunnion upgrade's all done, so that's ready to go on the new heads. I got to grab my new cam out of there first, and we're going to install that right away and just get that done, and then we can work outwards from there. Alright, so this is a little comparison between the stock LS1 and the new sloppy stage 2 I got. There's the Elgin 1804, I think it is. I forget. But I had to chip off all this like casting paint that they use. There's just like a little bit of dribbles on a couple of the lobes, so got all that off, got it cleaned up really nice. I'm going to use this stuff to lubricate it. I don't know where the front of it is, but it's some kind of bearing guard, assembly lube type stuff. So I'm going to douse this guy in that, get it all covered so it's all nice and lubricated, and then we'll slide it on in there. I'm going to take a couple of the water pump bolts, you thread them into the front, and it acts as a good handle to hold on to it. So let's go ahead and slide this thing in. All right, got this open. So let's cover this all over the place. Probably using way too much, but I'd rather use too much and not enough. So I'm gonna rub it all in there. I can't do that one-handed, so. Okay, got this all lubed up. Stuff kind of smells gross. Almost like burnt beef jerky or something. But just gently, let's see more on this end. Gently slide her in there. There it is. I'll take these bolts back out. I'll get the lube off my hands first. Okay, so the next part, we need to get our new plate. So we're going to put our new cam plate on there. Let me go and find it real quick. So this is pretty cool. This is the new one I got from Summit. It's got a new O-ring in there. It's pretty cheap to just get a new one like this. It also came with special bolts. So it came with these little hex key things that already have thread locker on them, so it's pretty nice and handy. So we'll go ahead and throw that on there. Go. So I'm not sure what the torque spec is supposed to be for these, but I'm gonna guess around 25 to 35 foot-pounds or something like that. I mean, it's a pretty small bolt, so I'm just gonna tighten it until it feels good. That's just me, though. Okay, so with that all tightened up, we can go ahead and put our cam gear back on and line up the little mark down there under the chain. You can't even see it. Okay, so I just threw my timing chain back on. I'm just reusing the old one. Seems fine to me. Everybody I see online always reuses them, so it's not some crazy track car, so it's not going to see sustained high RPMs, so it's really not that big a deal. It's got a little slop in it, but you know, whatever. I've seen people reuse worse. Hardest part is you have to pull the cam out. So reach in here and you can grab the lobe, pull the cam out, and then you can get the little pin in right there, and the bolts will suck it down. And I just torqued it down to 26 foot-pounds, which is what I've found is the torque spec. So yeah, now I just got to clean up the surface, get all this nice and clean for the new gasket. I'm going to put a little RTV in the corners, right there and there, and change that front seal, and I can put the cover on. Okay, so with all that done, I cleaned up the surface. I just kind of used some brake clean and a rag and just make sure there's no like little bits all over it. I tried to go over with a razor blade, but really this is just like color. Like there's nothing, you can't feel that at all. So, but yeah, I'm gonna put a little bit of RTV in the corners down there. I got my cover plate all cleaned up. I got the new seal popped in there. Put some Siliglide on the seal because you don't want it to fold over. Make sure that all the surfaces under here are all clean, and I actually scraped this one with a razor blade just to make sure it's all perfect. Mainly in these corners, that's where the RTV is going to go. The rest of it's just a normal gasket. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so I just cleaned up the surface for this top cover. I'm going to put a new gasket on here. I got the plate all clean. I'm just going to do this now so I don't have to worry about anything getting in here, any dirt or anything when I pull the trans out. It does kind of look like my cam position sensor is leaking. I got a new oil pressure sensor, but that cam sensor looks like it's leaking pretty bad, so I might have to get a new one of those. But for now, I just want to close up this top section. Alright, with that bolted on, it's looking much better now. Couldn't get it that clean, but it's whatever. I got some new knock sensors I got to throw in there at the top. I still got to take that oil pressure sensor out. Hope putting that on didn't make that harder, but also I need to start pulling the trans out. So I'm not sure if I should start with the interior first or just start dropping stuff. Not sure where to start, but so I forgot that you have to have that cover off to get the sensor out. So I had to take it all back apart, but got my sensor out. This is the original one, and this is an AC Delco supposedly stock replacement one, and obviously that is not the same. So I think I'm just gonna put some thread tape on this, maybe a little bit of RTV it by the crush washer, because this one doesn't even have a crush washer. I don't know what this is for, but that is not the same size. So I'm gonna put a little thread tape on that, get it all put back together again. Okay, now it's finally on for the final time. So I threw my knock sensors in. I bought a new harness. For this, it's generally a good idea, because like when I had to pull these out, took a lot of tugging and everything, and also these are brand new, so those will seal really nice. Got it just plugged in temporarily. I'm sure I'll have to move the wiring, you know, if I'm going to pull the transmission out. So still not sure about the cam sensor, but we'll see if I have to change that or not. Okay, so coming inside the car here, I just got my center console pulled out. I have the MGW shifter, so this makes it a little bit easier. I could just take the couple bolts out right here, a couple Allen keys, and just pull the actual shifter out and leave this whole assembly on here. So when we drop it down, it'll clear the tunnel. If you have a stock shifter, it's just a couple 13 mil bolts, I think, and you can pull the whole thing off. That makes it a lot easier. So didn't really film much of that because I have a whole other video on how to install that MGW shifter. So if you're curious about that, go check that video out. But yeah, so I think let's grab an Allen key, take that out, and then we can work under the car. Okay, I didn't really film much of this, but I pulled the drive shaft out. I also pulled out the torque arm. So it's pretty easy. I just took this two 11 mil or 4 11 mils on the yoke back there, and then there's a couple 21s that bolt on the torque arm, and then one 15 up in there, and this kind of opens up and you can slide the whole thing out. So I started taking the wiring apart. All this is aftermarket. These are my part of my gauges. I have oil temp and oil temp and trans temp and stuff like that. So looks like a mess, but it's not factory. These are the only factory plugs here. It's also a good idea to mark these, just because I've mixed these up before, and it's, you know, like one of these is like the reverse lockout solenoid, and you don't want to swap those, and then you can't get into reverse, and you have to go in here and do it all over again. So not really fun if you mess that up. So I need to get this oil temp unplugged. Trans temp goes in the fill plug up there. So I need to get that out of there. Then I can start working on bell housing bolts, and maybe this cross member, and also the clutch line has to be disconnected as well. The up to the master. Sometimes you gotta just get on in here, climb on into your engine bay. It makes it a whole lot easier. Get back here with your 13 mil, and you can get that bell housing bolt in the back. There's also one down here, but that I'm probably gonna get from underneath. So, but yeah, I need two hands for this. Okay, so I got all the bell housing bolts out. Had to do a bunch of them from up top. You use some ratcheting wrenches are your best friend when you're doing this. So I got the subframe unbolted. This is 15 mils there. I got my transmission jack supporting it, so I'm lowering it down just a little bit. I think I'm gonna have to take the starter off. I was hoping I wouldn't have to, but it was my first time pulling this transmission out on the ground like this. So, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's slowly starting to come out. So let me see if I get that starter out, and then see what else we need to do. All right, so we just pulled out the transmission. You can see it's pretty dirty. These are my clutch lines here. So this is where my remote bleeder kit should install through this little hole right there. We just went and put our clutch alignment tool in here. So we'll take off all of the pressure plate bolts evenly. I think they're like a 13 or something, or a 12. But we want to take them off evenly because I'm going to be reusing all this stuff, and so we just want it to all, you know, stay happy. But as you can see, this is the main reason I'm doing this, is this oil leak from the rear plate behind here. So I don't think the clutch is contaminated or anything. There's a little bit of oil residue on there, but let's take all those off and see what we got here. Okay, let's see. So I got some hot spots here on my flywheel, but otherwise everything looks pretty good. Some of the machine marks and everything are still on the pressure plate. So for as many miles that are on this clutch, I'm really impressed. This is a spec stage 2. So now we need to get the 15 mils off these flywheel things, flywheel bolts. We can pull off the flywheel and get to the plate behind here. It's leaking.
You want me to help?
I got it.
I don't know if I can record while helping.
I got it.
Is it stuck?
Yeah.
Let me grab the mallet. There.
Whew.
Ew.
Yep. Look at that. Yeah.
It looks like that whole cover is leaking.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The whole cover is like, this gasket's toast, and then obviously the rear main as well, but they probably used a cheap gasket and it failed after, I mean, with the amount of miles that are on this car, I'm not surprised. Okay, so we pulled our plate off. It's just a bunch of 10 mils. You gotta make sure you take the 10 mil that goes up through the oil pan on both sides. You just pull the whole plate off. So what's nice about these is they actually have pry points for the rear main seal. So I'll just probably stick a flathead in here and pry out the seal when I got a new one back there. So I'll try to see if we can do it one-handed. Probably not. Let me go to the other side.
It's coming out very slowly. Jesus.
Okay, so old seal is out. This guy right here. We got the new seal pushed in. I was actually able to just install it with my fingers. Just kind of go side to side and make sure everything gets nice and level. Right there. And then we just make sure this whole plate is really clean. So we just clean the whole surface. Make sure everything's perfect. You also want to clean the underside of here because this is where your RTV is going to go. That's where it actually connects to the oil pan. So we got to go under there and clean the engine side and make sure the oil pan is all clean. Because if you have any oil contamination, obviously the RTV won't dry and it won't seal. So obviously this will pop out once I'm ready to put it on. But it's this one's pretty nice because it was pre-greased. So, but yep, here's the new gasket. You just kind of sound like that, and we'll put it in there. Okay, so with the rear plate, everything all clean. We got this as clean as I could make it. I had to drain some of the oil to make sure no oil got in this top section here where the oil pan gasket meets, because we need this to be as completely dry. No oil can be on that at all. Otherwise that RTV will not dry. So got that all perfect. It's about as clean as I'm going to make it. So let's go ahead and put the RTV on and put the rear plate on. Okay, got my new gasket. Got a little thin layer RTV on the bottom. I probably had too much. I'm going to probably scrape a little bit off, but you don't need that much. So, but I can't really film this and do it with one hand. So I'm going to throw this on. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I decided to redo it just because I wasn't happy with how it was sitting. This is actually an alignment tool. So this goes over the crank in the center and it helps you line up the rear main, make sure it's all even. And so when you're putting this on, you're supposed to get every bolt started, but they're not snug or anything, they're just loose. And then you tighten up your oil pan ones, the big long ones that go all the way through the oil pan. Tighten those up first to suck the RTV down along the bottom because you want that to squish and actually form a gasket, and then you tighten up all the others by hand. But you got to be careful because they're just 10 mils, so you don't want to rip them out with the aluminum block. Okay, so I couldn't really film any of that, but it's pretty simple. Make sure everything's clean. Just like I said before, you put these 10 mil bolts in first. Make sure all these are started. All these are at least started, so you don't have it be crooked. This little thing goes right over the crank like that, so you can see it'll actually center it for you. And yeah, after these are tight, then you go around in a pretty even pattern just to make sure they're all tight. They're just 10 mils, so I just did it all by hand. I'm not sure if there's a torque spec or not, but I just basically went to as tight as they feel like they're snug. These long ones are very strange because they're so long that they feel like they could snap at any time. So very careful with that, but you can see my RTV line along here. It's kind of poking out a little bit, but remains in there perfect. So hopefully that should not leak. So with that, I figure crack open a cold one, try to take a break. I got my clutch over here, sitting next to my brand new hydraulic press. So this would be a really great addition to the garage. We could do our own wheel bearings. This is just a Amazon cheap one, but It's pretty high quality for what it is. I mean, for how much it is, you know, it's not bad. So we should be able to do all the wheel bearings and everything we need. They got a tool set back there. So I still need to get a couple more things to actually like pull hubs out of spindles and stuff like that, but that's gonna be pretty awesome. Also, I test fit my wheels with the brakes in the rear with Mickey Thompson tires. So it's looking pretty good. Try to get this done as quick as possible. This was supposed to be done before the summer was up, but it's been taking a lot longer than I anticipated. It's a lot of work. So this is like 2 months in at this point, I think. I mean, you guys probably know because I mean the videos have been pretty scarce coming out. But next time I am going to be putting the clutch back on. I think I'm going to throw the flywheel on first. Just kind of put it back on there. But in order to hold the engine still, to torque it down, I think I might have to get a torch and put the crank pulley on. But yeah, once the transmission's back in, you know, it's going to be a lot easier to just get started on putting my heads on and put my lifters in and all that stuff. So that's going to be a good episode. But I think I'm going to end it here. I might throw that clutch on real quick, but this videos are getting way too long. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Tune in next time. We're going to be installing the heads, most likely. Definitely show you how to set up that clutch, and what our little tricks are to do that. But yeah, so see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.